I've always been a heavy sleeper. Not much usually disturbs me during the night, but the last few weeks have been different. I've been waking up a lot, feeling panicked for reasons I can't explain. It happens 2 or 3 times a week. I jolt awake with my heart racing, expecting to see something. But my room looks normal in the darkness, and after a few deep breaths, I'm able to go back to sleep. I figured maybe it was just stress from my new job causing bad dreams. The long hours were messing with my sleep schedule for sure. I tried not to think much of it, but then last Tuesday night, things got way more intense. I woke up suddenly, the same as the other nights. My eyes strained in the darkness, slowly adjusting. As my vision focused, I nearly screamed. There was a face staring at me from across the room, a pale oval face devoid of any features. No eyes, no mouth, nothing. Just a blank white head peering at me. Finally, I forced myself to reach over and turn on the bedside lamp. I winced at the brightness, squinting towards where I had seen the face. But as the light filled the room, revealing all the normal contents of my bedroom, the eerie face was no longer there. Just my empty wall and furniture. I let out a shaky breath. Clearly, my mind was playing tricks on me. Maybe I was dealing with night terrors or something. I stayed up for a little while reading, too afraid to go back to sleep. But eventually, exhaustion took over. I left the lamp on and finally dozed off again. The next morning, I did some research online about hallucinations. The articles said lack of sleep, stress, or certain medications could cause realistic visions. I didn't take any meds, but the other factors lined up with my life lately. I decided to cut back my hours at work and try to relax more before bed. Hopefully, that will solve the issue. Later that week, I was feeling well-rested and calm when I went to bed. I'd almost forgotten about the creepy face incident. But right as I drifted off, a noise jolted me awake. A sort of tapping came from across the room. My whole body tensed. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself not to look. More tapping, slow and deliberate. My curiosity won over fear. I slowly opened my eyes, holding my breath. The pale oval face was back in my room, this time even closer, only a few feet from my bed. It hung there motionless, making no sounds now. As my panic rose, I repeated my reality check. I clicked on the lamp to illuminate the room. Just like before, the face instantly vanished into the shadows. I was wide awake now, heart pounding. I knew I should get up and leave the room, but I felt glued in place. I just stared towards where I had seen the phantom face, waiting nervously for any sign of movement. Everything remained still and quiet. Eventually, I again fell back asleep with the light on. When I saw my doctor the next day, he said intense nightmares could feel extremely vivid and real. He found nothing wrong physically, so he recommended I see a therapist to get to the root of what was causing them. I decided to start keeping a dream journal to track what triggered these haunting visions. The following nights, I managed to sleep undisturbed. No weird faces appeared, and I felt myself relaxing a bit. But at the end of the week, the now familiar tapping sound awoke me in darkness. That blank oval head hung there motionless as always. I fumbled to turn on the light, swearing I could see it drifting closer to me just before the room lit up and it disappeared. The dream journal helped zero in on connections. The nights the face appeared all had one thing in common. I had forgotten to do my reality checks before bed. The journaling routine was supposed to make me more mindful, but I got lazy about it when the experiences stopped for a few days. Realizing this gave me some sense of control at least. Still, this thing was interrupting my sleep every few days now. I searched online for stories of people seeing similar strange faces. A few weird forum posts described scarily similar encounters with a floating blank head surrounded by shadows. None had any explanations, but at least I knew I wasn't alone. My therapist suggested focusing on more positive thoughts before bedtime to influence my dreams and replace this particular vision. I really tried it too, only watching happy shows, looking at cute animal photos, and avoiding anything creepy or violent. It sort of helped at first, but didn't last. Last night it happened again. I was having a nice dream when an eerie tapping yanked me back to reality. I was almost getting used to the routine by now. A floating face hovering nearby, only visible in darkness. I lean over to turn on the light, and it disappears. This time, though, instead of the usual silence, I heard a voice. As the room lit up and the face retreated once more, a creepy, childlike giggle echoed around me. Everything froze. My blood, my breath, everything. That laugh, it sounded familiar in a strange way. Almost like my own voice as a kid, but distorted, unnatural. I couldn't shake it from my mind. Suffice it to say, I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The voice added a new layer to the unsettling experience. When I told my therapist, he suggested setting up cameras to film myself while I slept. That way I could see if these events actually happened, or were just in my mind. Reluctantly, I agreed to give it a shot. It took a few days to get night vision cameras with motion sensors positioned around my room. I aimed them at the usual areas the face appeared, and the sound seemed to come from. Then I just had to wait and hope I caught something on video. Last night it finally happened. I awoke to the familiar slow tapping. Holding very still, I glanced over and saw that ghostly face simmering in the darkness, plain as day. The need to flip on the light hit me, but this time I stayed frozen, trying not to scare away whatever presence was in the room with me. Several agonizing minutes went by with us facing each other down, me paralyzed in bed, the pale oval head hovering silently. Just at the point where I couldn't take it anymore, the laugh rang out, distant and muted like a broken music box. I turned on my lamp, and as my room lit up, the face vanished once again. I jumped up and grabbed my camera to watch the footage. What I saw made no sense. The video showed me sleeping peacefully the whole time. No floating face or creepy laughter. The footage never changed from me in my quiet slumber. I skipped through it multiple times, but nothing unusual appeared. According to the camera, my room was completely normal all night. So now I truly don't know what's going on. Could I be having vivid night terrors that I act out without realizing it? Or do the cameras just not detect this entity for some reason? None of the theories make sense anymore. All I do know is this presence keeps returning at random intervals, and one way or another, I must find a way to stop it. I'm honestly terrified to go to sleep now. I worry each night that I'll open my eyes to see that pale, blank face already right beside me, so close we'd almost be touching. And I'll hear that freaky child's laugh echoing inside my head again. I'm desperate for answers, but nowhere closer to understanding any of this weirdness happening. I haven't slept more than a couple of hours the past few nights. I just lay there waiting anxiously for any signs of movement or sounds of tapping. The exhaustion is really getting to me, making me jittery and on edge. I know I can't hide from sleep forever, though. It takes us all eventually, whether we want it or not. Who knows what I'll find waiting for me the next time I close my eyes and surrender to the darkness. I've always had crazy, vivid dreams. Some are fantastical and surreal, while others are like living nightmares. I wish I could forget the darker ones, but they often haunt me even after I wake up in a cold sweat. When I heard about Lucid Dream, an app that claims to analyze and interpret your dreams, I was instantly intrigued. According to the ads, it used some advanced AI algorithm to scan your brain waves while you slept and generate insights about your subconscious. Sounded far-fetched, but I was willing to try anything to better understand my dreams. The night I downloaded Lucid Dream, I placed my phone by my pillow and put on the headband sensor it needed, that I had to order separately. As I drifted off, I wondered if this tech would really work, or if I had just wasted money on a gimmick. That morning, I woke up to find a report waiting in the app. It generated images representing my dreams throughout the night. To my amazed delight, the visualizations aligned remarkably well with what I dreamt. It captured the surreal, floating landscapes and abstract shapes of my final dream. For the next week, I used the app every night. Each morning, I'd excitedly check, comparing the images to my dream memories. The visual interpretations were eerily accurate, almost like photographs of my subconscious imagination. I started noticing patterns in the types of dreams the app recreated. My anxiety dreams often involved dark, confining spaces and shadowy figures chasing me. The exciting wish fulfillment ones included things like flying over oceans or finding secret rooms filled with treasure. But when the app generated imagery from my nightmares, the representations were downright chilling. Photos of grisly car crashes, disturbing rituals, and demonic entities so vivid, I wanted to tear my eyes out. But I forced myself to look. Maybe understanding these fears would help me overcome them. However, after 2 weeks of use, the app started glitching in peculiar ways. The dream renderings became distorted, blurred, and garbled. Technical issues were bound to happen, so I reported the bugs and carried on. But that night, something very strange occurred. As I slept, I had a nightmare about a towering, faceless entity looming over my bed, reaching for me with crooked hands. When I checked Lucid Dream in the morning, instead of generating a symbolic image, it created a photorealistic 3D rendering of the very creature in my nightmare, set in my real bedroom. I felt unnerved, but figured it was just a fluke of the AI. But the next night it happened again. This time my nightmare involved a writhing mass of maggots covering my bathroom floor. Lucid Dream produced an image depicting the exact horrific scene as if someone had photographed my bathroom covered in wriggling bugs. As the nights went on, the line between my nightmares and reality started blurring. Every time I had a disturbing dream, the app would generate an increasingly vivid photo of the content in the real setting it occurred. Was it pulling images directly from my mind, rather than interpreting them? Soon I became paranoid about falling asleep. I dreaded what horrid visions it would create next. I stopped using the headband sensor, but the hallucinatory images persisted. I'd be having a mundane dream about work when suddenly a dark, faceless figure would appear in the background, then manifest in the app upon waking. Or I'd dream of getting in bed, only for the app to show a photograph of a shadowy demon perched at the end of my mattress as I slept. I'd toss and turn all night, terrified I was being watched, or that something would reach out from the darkness. Deleting the app didn't help either. The dreaming images still invaded my waking life, projected onto surfaces around me. I'd see blood dripping down my bedroom walls or ghostly faces staring back from mirrors and darkened windows. I was no longer sure what was real or if I was having a perpetual nightmare. Exhausted and paranoid, I avoid sleep, guzzling coffee and energy drinks. But eventually, after days without rest, I crashed. In my dead sleep, the nightmare was more vivid than ever. I was trapped in place as a horrifying beast crept towards me, malevolent shadows swirling around us. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. As its massive claws reached for my face, I jolted awake, breathing heavily in my darkened bedroom. Had I escaped the nightmare? Warily, I grabbed my phone and opened Lucid Dream, hands shaking. The app's interface was black, except for a single photo filling the screen. The creature's twisted face and razor-sharp claws inches from my own as I lay paralyzed in bed, its dead eyes boring into me. This was no AI glitch. Something evil had invaded my mind, and it was no longer confined to just dreams. It started a few weeks ago. I had been having trouble sleeping, tossing and turning all night, so I finally broke down and ordered some of those sleep headphones you can get online. I figured maybe listening to some soothing sounds would help me relax and drift off. The first night I tried them out, I picked a track that was supposed to simulate the sounds of ocean waves. As the sounds washed over me, I could feel my body sinking deeper into the mattress. Before I knew it, I was out cold. That's when the dreams started. Vivid, intense dreams where I was no longer myself, but someone else entirely. The first dream took place in a dense, misty forest. I looked down to see I was wearing leather armor and carrying a sword. I could hear shouts and clashes of steel echoing through the trees. 2 armies were engaged in battle, and I was one of the soldiers. I felt the sweat dripping into my eyes and the ache in my muscles as I swung my blade at an oncoming enemy. Everything felt completely real. I could even smell the mix of mud and blood in the air. At some point, I took a brutal hit to my side. I remember falling to my knees, the forest spinning around me. That's when I woke up, jolting upright in bed with my heart racing. I frantically felt my torso, but there was no wound, no blood. It had only been a dream. An extremely vivid dream where I was someone else, somewhere else. I told myself it was just a weird fluke, some random nightmare brought on by the new sleep headphones. But the next night the dreams returned, and they continued every time I used the headphones. Each night I would live an entire existence as someone else. The time period and setting were different every time, but the level of detail and realism was uncanny. I could actually taste the food I was eating and feel the ground beneath my feet. I started looking forward to going to bed each night, just so I could escape into these hyper-realistic dreams. My days began to feel dull by comparison. Why spend hours bored at my desk when I could be fighting dragons or sailing pirate ships in my dreams? I started using the headphones during naps too, just to get extra dream time. I couldn't get enough. The vivid adventures were so much more interesting than real life. My whole sleep schedule shifted as I tried to maximize my dreaming. But I could slowly feel it taking a toll. I was sleeping 12 to 14 hours a day, blowing off social engagements and responsibilities so I could stay in bed listening to the headphone tracks. My boss warned me I was at risk of losing my job if I kept calling out. My friend James stopped by to see how I was doing. When I didn't answer the door, he used the spare key I gave him and found me still asleep in the middle of the day. I woke up to James yelling my name and shaking my shoulder. Disoriented, I lashed out and swung at him, still partially stuck in the dream about being a soldier on a battlefield. He looked at me with real concern after I tried to take a swing at him. "Snap out of it, man. This isn't healthy. You need to stop using those headphones." I knew he was right, but I couldn't bring myself to quit. What was waiting for me in the real world besides my dead-end job and mundane routine? Each night, the dreams were getting more realistic than ever. The emotions I felt were so raw. Fear, love, anger. They flooded my nervous system with adrenaline. How could I go back to my boring life after experiencing these incredible adventures? But the longer I spent in the dream world, the harder it became to keep a grip on what was real. Time lost all meaning when my days blended into nights and back again. Reality became a nightmare. At least when I was dreaming, everything felt right, like I was finally where I belonged. One evening, I decided I needed to try something drastic to break the addiction. I destroyed the headphones, cutting the cord with scissors and smashing the speakers. That night, as I lay in bed, I could feel my hands sweating with anticipation for the vivid dreams to start. But this time, they didn't come. My sleep was empty and restless. In the middle of the night, I jolted awake in sheer panic from the lack of dreams. I felt along my nightstand for the broken remains of the headphones. In a frenzy, I tried splicing the wires back together. I had to get the dreams back. As I touched the frayed ends of the wires together, a massive jolt surged through my body. My limbs violently seized up as I fell backward onto the floor. I couldn't tell if I was really awake or still dreaming. Everything felt off. I didn't know how long I had been out, a few hours or a few days. Had I experienced a seizure, or had that just been part of the vivid dream? I couldn't trust anything happening around me. The voice had said I was already awake during that terrifying blackout, and now this waking world felt just as suspect. I knew one thing. I had to get away from those cursed headphones. I ran down to my garage and grabbed a hammer. With crazed swings, I smashed them to pieces, bits of plastic and metal scattering across the concrete floor. Destroying them wasn't enough, though. Their power came from somewhere else. I became convinced that a dark presence was living inside of me. I stumbled back upstairs to the bathroom and turned on the shower, making the water as hot as I could tolerate. I had to burn the presence out of my body. As the scalding water scorched my skin, I could see flashes of those dreams playing behind my eyelids, but I couldn't let myself get pulled back in. I just kept chanting to myself through the searing pain. You're awake, this is real, you're awake.